The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. A's Baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Nancy Finley is on assignment, and Jerry Feitelberg is on a cruise of a lifetime. He's gone for 6 weeks, and I'm delighted for him. He's Madagascar, all over the world. I'm also lucky that Michael Duca, who is the podcaster and co-host of the Giants Past, Present, and Future show that we have on this network, is guesting with me, and I'd like to welcome Michael. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm an inadequate pinch hitter for Jerry, but I'm going to do my best.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and you're modest. You're not at all inadequate in any way. So let me open.
Well, I wouldn't. I'd rather Jerry filled my prescriptions than I filled his. But believe me, there are ways.
Well, in that case,
I'm not an adequate pinch hitter.
And you'd both probably like me to fill your prescriptions on some level too. So we could all pharmacize each other out, and will at one time or another in life. Michael, let me ask you about the stadium deal in Oakland that absolutely fell apart in this past week. What's your take? Is there a plan 2? Do you think that they can recover and put something together for the old site that they're on, where the Coliseum is? And I'd like your opinion.
Well, I think a couple of things here. First of all, there was never a problem with rebuilding on the Coliseum's current site. The problem is that the A's state, and I have no reason to disbelieve them, that they have studies in hand that show that their revenue stream would be about $75 million a year greater at the Peralta College site. There are significant problems at Howard Terminal, which looks like it would be a beautiful site and certainly could be easily adapted, but there are neighbor problems. There's a steel and iron yard right next door, and the owners of that are extremely unwilling to deal with having a ballpark as its neighbor, because I'm sure that they realize what's happened at AT&T Park, which is as soon as the ballpark came in, the texture of that neighborhood changed dramatically. And they're wondering how long will it be before somebody wants to evict them and take over that space to put in condos or apartments or nightclubs or restaurants or whatever. So I understand the issues that are there with that site. But, yeah, I think they could do something really creative at the Coliseum site if they wanted to. My understanding is that they also have a previously undiscussed in public location that they have looked at. I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's at 3rd and Oak. It's basically on the other side. Yes,
we're talking right downtown.
Well, we're talking directly off the freeway, and I'm not sure if it's on the bay side of the Nimitz at that point or not. I think it is. I think that's essentially almost in Jack London Square and in the vicinity of the old produce mart.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
Again, I don't know any more about it than that.
In the public, I'd never heard it at all. I've never heard it mentioned.
I've seen reference to it a time or two since this issue has come up with the Peralta board. And remember, nobody shut the door permanently on the Peralta location. Students are upset, faculty are upset because I guess they think that they're going to lose their idyllic urban campus setting. But basically all that was being talked about in this was to relocate the district offices and maybe a maintenance facility that's there. They're worried about the gentrification of a neighborhood. I'm trying to figure out exactly which neighborhood they're worried about gentrifying because there's not much of a neighborhood around that area, at least that I'm aware of, but I've only lived there for 45 years.
May I ask you, Michael, if the site that you talked about with the iron workers who own the property and whatever, is it just one person to deal with, or is it a combination or a compilation of different businesses?
Well, my understanding is that there's one major business that's the sticking point, but then you also have unknown, and, the difference between the A's building a stadium now and the Giants building a stadium 20 years ago is certainly willingness to spend money, I think. The Giants took over a site that had toxic cleanup issues, and they cleaned it up. And, there used to be a battery factory there. And they cleaned that up, and everything's fine. Well, there's unknown costs on the Howard Terminal site, which is basically just west of Jack Lemmon Square. It's on the Amtrak tracks, and certainly something could be worked out with single tracking in that area where they could put a trolley to go from BART down there if they wanted to deal with that issue. But, right now it seems like they want more cost certainty before they make a commitment than that site is going to be able to offer them under any circumstances. So you've got, for now, the identified site at Peralta Colleges where the board instructed the chancellor to stop negotiating. He didn't instruct them to tell the A's to never come back and darken our door. So, this could be an internal power play with the board trying to exert some authority and control over the chancellor and telling him to stop acting as a free agent, although, we all know that if you're trying to negotiate a deal, it's really not a bad idea to have somebody have the authority to negotiate that deal and then bring it back for approval rather than having 7 people trying to negotiate the deal.
Right.
And the other thing is that this could also be a way of trying to reset things and squeeze a little more money out of the deal.
Is the mayor, Libby Schaap, I know she's against the Peralta location. Is she, in fact, against any location? Is she not going to cooperate? Does she want to keep the team, I guess, is what I'm saying.
My sense, and this is based solely off whatever sound bites network local TV has decided to run, but my sense of it is that she is rather quite committed to trying to keep the team. She's resigned to the loss of the Warriors, and I think she is now resigned to the loss of the Raiders, although she certainly put in some serious efforts to try and keep them.
Did they break ground on the stadium? I think Jerry mentioned that a week or so ago, the Raiders.
Yeah. There was a ceremonial groundbreaking there.
Okay.
It's but it remains to be seen what's going to happen there for the very simple reason, Ralph, that we have not yet had a chance to examine the 500-odd page GOP tax bill. The first iteration of it that came out of the House of Representatives was going to eliminate the tax deductibility or the tax-free treatment of municipal bonds. It would appear, if you look at everything in that bill, that the Republicans have decided to declare war on cities, and counties. But nevertheless, if the Raiders, if Nevada is not able to issue $500 million in tax-free municipal revenue bonds, then questions get interesting. If they're going to have to pay enough interest on those bonds to make it an attractive investment for people who themselves are going to have to pay tax on the return, then the numbers may get skewed pretty seriously.
It's a long shot. Getting the Raiders back is an incredible long shot, or having them not.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, basically, you're 2 touchdowns down with 45 seconds left on the clock, and they're about to punt to you.
And Flutie can't make the game.
Yeah. Doug Flutie has retired and is eating a bowl of Flutie flakes at the moment.
Right, and so there'll be no Hail Mary on this one, no doubt.
I don't think so.
All right. I want to segue a little bit to one of the most magnanimous franchises. The St. Louis Cardinals did it. You're always used to hearing management and ownership screwing over the players, this, that, and the other thing. Well, they did something very nice. They put together kind of a sweetheart deal where Ed Piscotty, an outfielder originally from Pleasanton, California, out here, number 1 draft pick out of Stanford, pretty darn good outfielder, who had, because of injuries and what I'm going to talk about, the personal problem that he has, his mom living out here has developed ALS. And in order for the kid to be closer to his mom, St. Louis agreed on a terrific deal, allowing the A's to acquire him. He's a hometown kid, and it gives us something to root for. Her hanging in there, her last months, years made comfortable. I think it was the nicest thing I've seen in baseball for the last 5 years. What do you think of that?
Well, I think you're entitled to your opinion, and I'm not going to try and shake you of it. I will, however, say that the A's had interest in Piscotty long before the Cardinals had interest in helping him get here.
Okay.
And second of all, there's a thing about this trade that is completely and totally in keeping with 15 years of Billy Beane history, and that is trading for former number 1 draft picks. He's done it over and over and over again.
He being one himself perhaps influences him.
Yeah. And guys who have been drafted high, gotten the opportunity because they were drafted high, and maybe not quite panned out as well as their organizations hoped. The organizations have soured on them a little bit. Piscotty also was a man without a position once Marcell Ozuna showed up in St. Louis. He had scuffled a little bit last year. He was having some issues. Who knows if those were related to his mom's diagnosis?
No, he had some hamstring problems as well as the trauma with his mom.
But even if getting him closer to home wasn't the primary driver of the deal, and let us not misinterpret this. The A's gave up 2 very solid prospects for him. They were 2 very solid prospects who may well have been blocked in their own organization. But nonetheless.
Yeah, they were infielders, and they're looking pretty good at infield right now, the major league level right now. So
Right. And
Yeah.
so they gave value to get value. This was a trade that would stand on its own without the feel-good story. And it was a trade that was not particularly, in my opinion, one-sided in either direction without the feel-good story. The feel-good story is, it's kind of, I don't know, it's like going to your favorite website and you buy something and it says, you've been selected today to get, your choice of 25 pieces of children's car racetrack or, whatever other bonus you want to pick over here. You didn't really go into it looking for the bonus. You didn't value the bonus in as part of the deal. You made the deal and the bonus kind of came along with it.
Gotcha.
It's fortunate that he's coming to his home area, but if the Cardinals really wanted to get him back home, would they not have at least inquired what the Giants might have been willing to offer for him?
Good point. Giants could have used him as much as the A's could have used him.
Maybe more.
Yeah. Yeah, because this helps the A's in flexibility, moves Raj Davis to DH pretty much all the time. But with the Giants, they're desperate for some outfield. Are you surprised that both teams have been pretty, outside of the deal with St. Louis, the A's have been pretty quiet as well as the Giants. Does that surprise you? And has it been quiet? Is it my imagination, or has it been quiet all over baseball with the winter meetings?
Well, it's been quiet all over baseball, but it's a little bit of your imagination. Most of the time, the winter meetings are used to do fever checks, to find out who's available, who's interested, and, then you take a little bit of time to stand back and say, do I really want this guy? And meanwhile, if you're in the business of trying to move somebody, you now know I have 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, 12 teams. You have an idea of what your interest level is and how you can sit back and kind of assess all that. It's tough to do that when you're standing in the lobby of, the Disney Resort in Orlando.
Right.
So I think it's pretty common, to be honest with you, especially nowadays when trades, good Lord, look at the trade that was made today between the Dodgers and the Braves. $90 million worth of contracts changed hands there. That's a lot of money.
Right, and they're going to release Adrian Gonzalez. They're going to DFA him as soon as business opens on Monday morning. So these trades are strictly business, strictly releasing contracts, moving contracts around. Kemp comes back to the Dodgers. Is there room for him?
Well, Kemp comes back to the Dodgers, but between you and me, I don't think the Dodgers called their tailor and asked them to measure it for a uniform over the weekend.
So that could be a here today, gone tomorrow trade.
I think he's just changing planes in L.A.
Okay.
He will wind up. Excuse me, just 1 second. He will wind up, I think, in an American League city where he can DH because last year he was statistically and this will come as a shock to Giants fans, the worst left fielder in baseball. Yes, as bad as you thought you had it, Giants fans, worse was out there.
Wow. How much have you seen, and I'm going to use a quote, change of environment? This guy needs a change of scenery type thing. Is that generally? I know Bobby. They told Bobby Bonds that maybe 12 times in his career. Does that often happen where somebody changes teams and rejuvenates their career?
Not often. It happens once in a while. I mean, the Dodger Brave trade today was purely to position the Dodgers to go after Bryce Harper next year. What they did was they traded away $48 million of bad contracts that expire at the end of the year, and they took back $48 million in one bad contract that's spread over 2 years. So even if they wind up stuck with Kemp, they have 50% salary relief this year. If they're able to move him, if they're able to move him, if they throw a prospect into a deal and some money and move him to an American League team to use as a DH, then they have cleared a huge amount of money to go after Harper next year. Interestingly, I've been told that Harper, if he leaves Washington, is more interested in playing for the Giants than any other West Coast team, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. The fact that a couple of people have said that to me does not make it so.
Okay. Before I note that that the A's made a trade to get a veteran and gave up prospects, I want your reaction to that, or after I note it. To me, that's a good sign in A'sville.
Well, again,
I mean, Bean's been going back and forth with this, acquire veterans, trade them for minor leaguers, this and so forth for 10 years. But I'd like it better when it's on the upswing.
Well, let's just put it this way. Let's enjoy the feel-good part of the Stephen Piscotty story now while we can. Because Stephen Piscotty has every bit as much chance of winding up a Cleveland Indian next June as anything else.
Okay. Well,
I mean, how many times have you seen have you seen the A's go after guys like, well, let's see, how about Rich Hill?
Yeah, and Holiday too was another one that they traded prospects for, and then got them, and within 6 months.
Yeah, well, Holiday is an interesting case. Holiday is, I don't know if you paid real careful attention during the half season that he was in Oakland, but I have never seen a player less interested in being where he was and more in a hurry to get out, with the possible exception of Jerry Sheffield in Milwaukee. Holiday.
That Sheffield story you told on the Giant show a week or so ago resonates in my head whenever I think of him.
I mean, Holiday, he wanted out so bad that he made it crystal clear every time he came to the plate. I mean, his body language, his attitude, his effort, his hustle, they just weren't there. He did not want to be an Oakland Athletic. He wanted out, and he wanted out as fast as he could get out. And so I will use this term very loosely. He played his way off the team.
Yeah, probably on purpose, like with Sheffield.
Absolutely. There's not a question in my mind. As much as I enjoyed his talent, I lost 100% of my respect for him in watching that, because it wasn't even subtle. It was just painfully obvious every time you saw him out there on the field that he was not interested.
Right. Well, someday we'll talk about the day I lost respect for Gary Sheffield, and he wasn't even in the majors. He was a minor league player at Stockton, and I was the Tops rep. And we don't have time today, but I'll tell you that story. It'll blow you away. Let me close by saying this. I feel much less positive about the A's situation after talking to you, and feel good that I can put things into perspective a little more realistically, and I could look at it from a journalist standpoint as opposed to a fan standpoint. You put it into perspective why they got Biscotti in the first place. He did have a ton of potential coming out of Stanford.
He did, and he still does. And in fact, I mentioned that, if the Cardinals were really hell-bent on getting Biscotti to the Bay Area, they would have checked with the Giants. But I think they were saving that phone call for the Giants. It would not surprise me to see Randall Grichuk wind up in San Francisco.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be interesting. Let's talk about that on the Giants show. And Michael, I'd like to thank you for filling in. This is great. And if you're out there listening and you enjoy this or any of our offerings, I would like to invite you to box up some lightly used children's books and take them down to the Head Start program wherever you are and get some kids reading and ready for school, and that would make me happy. Michael, thank you for pinch hitting for the cruising Jerry Feitelberg, and what a cruise! I can't tell you. 6 weeks on a cruise ship, going all over the world, well deserved. Tremendous guy, and love to having him on the network. Michael, I love having you too. Hang on, we'll talk some off the air, and I just want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll be back next week with A's Baseball, past, present, and future on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Adios, everybody.